now entering the horror sanctum.
Hello, and welcome back to the Horror Sanctum podcast. I'm Jay with John and Kellen. And I don't know if you remember, we've mentioned it a few times, but we have a bucket of movies. It's to my right here. I would show you, but it's green, and I have a green screen behind me. Clearly, I'm not actually at a hotel. But we decided to pick some names from that. We picked Ravenous with Guy Pearce, which is one of my favorite horror films. We actually switched that out for now because we did a trap episode instead. But the other film that we pulled, and I would assume it's either me or John's pick. I will put money on John, but you said you didn't remember when we pulled it. But is 1980s Motel Hell, directed by Kevin Connor. So again, 1980, you still might be unfamiliar. It's one of those, I don't like the term hidden gem, but it's definitely on the lower end of the spectrum for horror movies. Vincent Smith and his sister Ida run a rural hotel, but they earn most of their cash operating a food stand that specializes in world famous sausages. After years of success, however, the duo's upstanding brother, Sheriff Bruce, eventually discovers the grotesque details of his siblings' booming business. Vincent and Ida are actually plumping up their hotel patrons, killing and dismembering them, and then grinding them into nice little frankfurters. Again, 1980, but no now. Spoilers are ahead.
So, Motel Hell, I will be the first to admit, I have the most extreme case of nostalgia bias for this film. And I will absolutely. So, to say that this movie is my cup of tea, I would literally say this is actually my cup of tea. Like, actually, the tea that I would be drinking in the cup is Motel Hell. This is the first movie I ever saw on Monster Vision. This is how I figured out who Joe Bob was. I was like 13 or 14. It was on TV. So I think this tied in with like Friday the 13th. It was just such a pivotal point for me getting into horror. I love this movie. I really do. I think it's definitely a hidden gem. It's an oddball thing. I mean, obviously, I've got even the Farmer Vincent figure, so I'm kind of a crazy fanboy with this. Jay, I saw your steelbook earlier. I think I have it somewhere back there. Yeah, it's everything about it. Just the opening, the title credits, the Motel Hell, and then Hello. The music, like the score, I love these older slasher films, or for this one, like a slasher comedy where the music is so like mellow and kind of disarming. It's almost like happy. I always like how they do that in those 80s and 70s films like that. It's just something about it's very charming. It's really hard to rate and enjoy a movie objectively that you've seen so many times. I'm starting to learn this as we've gone along. It's so much easier when we watch movies that we've never seen. Because I go into this knowing I love it, and I mean, yeah, the whole thing, Farmer Vincent he's basically Jimmy Dean if Jimmy Dean was Norman Bates. Like, he's just like a crazy Jimmy Dean, right? He's a good old boy. He's cooking the sausages, the beef jerky. But, he's obviously got a screw loose. And Rory Calhoun does so good just because he's so likable. He's an old time Western actor, and that performance, he sells it. If the wrong person was in that role, you wouldn't even like it. But Rory Calhoun, like the whole movie, he's doing these things, but you still kind of like the guy. His sister Ida is crazy. That actress was only in like a few movies. She was in Porky's. I forget the other thing she was in, but she was a good actress. I think she died fairly young, like in the 90s. She wasn't that old. But yeah, that's a lot of the characters in this movie are ridiculous. The people they catch, Ivan and the Terribles, like that whole band in the van when they crash is ridiculous. Bruce, the sheriff brother, the younger brother, he's kind of like rapey in the movie. He's kind of creepy. Like there's something about it that's like he basically tries to almost rape the girl in the car at one point, and then at the end he's kind of like the Barney Fife that saves the day, even though. The whole movie, you don't like the guy. You're just like, God, this guy's such a fucking idiot, right? One of the things that I always laugh in this movie, I don't know why, but the preacher, whenever he confiscates the porno mag, and he's like, "Oh, glory, glory!" Like, I don't know why that's so funny to me. I still laugh at that. The pig head thing is cool because I feel like this was the movie that kind of made that popular because they did pig heads in like different movies and stuff. Like I know in that there's a video game called Manhunt where there's a character named Piggy. So I feel like a lot of things kind of
I
borrowed
loved
from
that
this
game
movie.
so much back in the day.
Yes. It's so crazy. That game is so crazy. But
3 different ways to kill people. You could just slit their throat, or you could go as far as literally decapitating them and then using their head as a distraction. Come on, that was perfect.
dude, it's scary. It's a really
Yeah.
scary game. But yeah, I mean, it's a satire. I'm sure that I've never really thought about it because I don't like doing this with a lot of horror movies, but I'm sure there's some sort of a hidden message about like vegetarianism, veganism. I'm sure there's some message here that they were trying to convey as a satire about it. And it's obviously playing on like Texas Chainsaw, things like that. But God, I love this movie. I mean, it's not by no means is it, I would say it's a great movie, but it's just so fun and it's for me it's so nostalgic. So yeah, I mean, I love it. I'm very curious of what you guys think though.
Yeah, I didn't. So this is the second Rory Calhoun movie we've watched. Congratulations to him for making it on the Horror Sanctum podcast twice because he was the old Western cowboy and angel. And he was fantastic in that. He's fantastic in this. The guy could just flat out act. I mean, it's props to him. I'm surprised he wasn't as bigger as he was. I was looking through his IMDb. I know he was in I want to say a 50s Western TV show. I can't remember what the name of it was, but dude's great. He's a highlight in this film. Wolfman Jack, I've always loved him. I love Jack Black's portrayal of him in the Weird Al Yankovic movie. Just that cool voice that everybody recognizes immediately. Wolfman Jack. Like John said, the scene where he confiscates the porn mag and puts it in his bag. That was fantastic. That was hilarious. It has some very, very funny scenes in it. John Ratzenberger. It took me about 3 scenes of seeing him to realize that Cliff Clavin from Cheers was in this movie. And it's got to be some early work of his because he doesn't really have much to do in this movie other than gargle like a zombie when he's planted. Speaking of which, what's the purpose of planting the people? What was that? Was that some kind of they're trying to be like, bro, we raise all of our, because he has the scene in the end where he's like, I'm the biggest hypocrite of all right before he dies. I use preservatives. Was he trying to like insinuate that this is all natural meat? Because
yeah, I think it's just
he
a play
plucks
on
the
it,
people,
yeah.
he waits until they're ripe for the picking, and then he plucks the people from the ground for Mother Earth and grinds them up with the pork.
Yeah.
How do you figure out that human meat, that's what we was missing? All this other stuff didn't really mix with the pork, but them people patties, those really grind up well. And then just the whole conversation he has with the girl talking about, well, Sheriff, he's the biggest cannibal of them all. I'm pretty sure nobody's eating those meat sticks if there was a picture of a human head on the cover. So that made absolutely zero sense to me. I thought it was hilarious with the band when they're driving and the guy says, we better find a place to crash. Immediately crashes the van. I was like, that's some brilliant foreshadowing right there. God, I'm trying to read through my notes. Okay. Vincent grinds up human people to eat or to feed people his famous fritters, but draws the line at premarital sex. What kind of moral up compass does this guy have? He's like, I'm a monster, but I'm not a weirdo. I'm not a creep. Like,
he's a complex man. Come on now.
And that's my big problem with this whole movie is it didn't know what it wanted to be. Like it was trying to be like along the lines of like a later series Andy Griffith show, like maybe like towards the end when Barney had already left and you had
the town accountant who was supposed to be the comedic relief. He just didn't quite fit, but it always had the little musical interludes that were. I was like, well, honey, I just can't wait to see you later. I mean, it was like these heartfelt moments, and then she's trying to kill the girl by drowning her. The farmer Vincent guy kills her boyfriend or that girl, whoever she was riding on the motorcycle with. But then all of a sudden he has an affinity for her, but it makes it seem like it's a father-daughter thing until she tries to force herself on him after just having a scene where the sheriff gets all rapey with her and she turns him down, and then she's going to turn around and get all rapey with Farmer Vincent.
It's a learned behavior.
It's like the worst case of Munchausen's.
She had some daddy issues for sure, because they were both old, both of them.
Yeah, and it feels like, all right, this is gonna be me going way out on a limb here, so bear with me. It feels like whoever wrote this wanted to make a horror comedy, because that was about the time, 1980, early 80s was about the time where comedies were really starting to pick up and become, and that would go through the 80s where comedic action, comedic horror, comedic dramedies, if you want to call them that, were kind of the thing in the 80s. And that's what makes the 80s such a joy, is a lot of those movies that had touches of comedy with serious notes, or like, I mean, Back to the Future is a 5-star franchise because it has that comedic element along with the action. It's why we love Tales from the Crypt from the 90s, is it's, you know, horror mixed with slapstick comedy. But it feels like whoever wrote this movie watched the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, took some themes from that, tried to make a movie, failed, and then the people who made Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 watched this movie, took some themes from it, and made a better version. You know, with the whole eating people, like the people are part of the meat, you know, the chainsaw wielding, the chainsaw fight scene between Vincent and the sheriff that we end up getting in PCM2 with Leatherface and Dennis Hopper. So it feels like it was sandwiched between Texas Chainsaw Massacre 1 and 2, and it fed off of 1, and then it fed 2. And Texas Chainsaw Massacre, we get Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, we get what this movie should have been. I don't get the purpose of the motel. I could understand if you were letting people come there, other than the creepy porn couple that wanted to try to have sex with them, the guy and his sister, which I can get Farmer Vincent. Dude was a handsome man, but the sister, people get hate comments on that one. But other than that, he was basically just causing people to wreck and then planting them. So why even have the motel? What was if your whole business is Farmer Vincent's fritters, what's the whole purpose of the motel? It just felt out of place or forced. Like he could have just had a farm and he was just wrecking people that come down an old county road and putting their car, because what the sheriff said, there was 200 cars in the pond or the lake that he saw.
It's also reckless. You're like, you got rooms of DNA now of people who stayed here and have ended up missing. Like it
well, they cover that a little bit by having the sheriff be an absolute idiot, a creep and an idiot. So, I mean, that's small town for you. Not that Jay or I would know anything about that, or John, growing up in small rural towns. You know, there's just absolute idiots that have titles, and you're like, I don't know how that. Oh wait, I do. But this is how bad that movie was for me. Like, I've got notes here, and I have no idea what I'm talking about. And I went back and watched this movie at least 1.5 times because I had to rewind to catch scenes and make sure I didn't miss things. I wrote down, what was she writing with that died? Who was she writing with that died? Yeah, I didn't even care about the guy that the girl was writing with. It didn't even make sense to me.
Which he didn't die. He actually was one of the guys that pulls them out at the end.
Was he?
Yeah,
okay,
he was the guy with like the weird beard. Yeah,
that's how little I cared. So okay, and this is one thing that I was like, okay, they wrote that in to fill a plot hole that they couldn't figure out a better way to fit. So it's perfectly legal to bury some rando if it's extenuating circumstances. They literally passed a law that allows for murder and a cover up. If you can just be like, because that's basically what he told the sheriff. Why didn't you call me? Well, I had to get him buried before sunrise. And the sheriff was like, oh, the law. Okay, well, you're good on that one. I mean, you could literally, and he did get away with murdering hundreds of people and just be like, oh, yeah, he wrecked and died. And I didn't want the buzzards to get the body. I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. I'm glad you took care of it so I didn't have to write up any paperwork. Bye. Like, that was the dumbest part of an already dumb movie. So sorry to shit on your nostalgia, John. I can understand a young person watching this and it just being, a hoot to steal a word.
A hoot. Spoken like a young person yourself.
Hey, I grew up with Rocco's Modern Life, and what did he say at the end of the intro? That was a hoot. So it applies for 41-year-old man.
We were young then.
Yeah. So yeah, I feel like it was a movie that wanted to be multiple things, but couldn't settle on one thing, and it just didn't do any one thing good. so that's me. That's my thoughts. Sorry.
That's fair. I own it. I was telling John I was going to disappoint him in this episode. Maybe not fully. The nostalgia thing plays a huge part in this movie. Huge part. Because while I didn't watch this until I was probably in my 20s, I saw it. I saw parts of it. The pig head scene with the chainsaw is infamous. So I always wanted to watch this movie. So I completely get it. It was one of those movies that I wasn't allowed to rent at the video store when I was a kid, but I remember seeing the cover all the time. So I get that. This is my official third or fourth time watching it. The first time doesn't count. My biggest takeaway is if you're fed human meat without knowing, is that cannibalism?
I thought the same thing. It's like, if you get fed a horse, does that mean you like horse meat? I mean, you like horse meat because you ate it multiple times. You didn't know it was a horse, so would you have eaten it otherwise?
Well, if you ate it and liked it, then yes, you do in fact like horse meat. If you ate it and didn't like it, then you don't. But that was just something I'm like, I want. And funny enough, we were supposed to do this movie and Ravenous, both involve cannibalism. So that would have been fun. I didn't even think about that when we first did this movie. Vincent and the young girl. That was the oddest part to me. Like, I never quite understood that. A lot of my notes is the comparison between Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Kellen, you've already covered that. I'm not going to get back into it, but you're 100% right with what you said. Like, if they had gotten together, who knows what they would have made? Probably a rom-com. But it was definitely they were definitely feeding into one another, and it got a little bit better. So someone saw it like, I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do it right. The acting was solid. I didn't have an issue with that at all. If this was, you talked about the sister, she was a good actress. If this was made in the early 90s, Ricky Lake would have been that sister.
Yeah, I can see that.
100%. I just watched
Kathy Bates.
Or Kathy Bates. I just watched Serial.
Wow, that would have been awesome, actually. Yeah.
I thought this was our first cannibalism movie, but it's really not. We had Silence of the Lambs and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But this is definitely our third one. I don't know, man. Like, that nostalgia's there for me. Like, I'm clearly a sucker for physical media and steelbooks. I own the movie, but I don't hate it by any means. I never hated it. Not this current time, but the time before when I watched this, I didn't even finish it. I'm like, I was bored out of my mind. It's probably about 20 minutes too long. And a lot of it doesn't make sense. And it's not supposed to. It's 1980. It was a crazy time. The burying the people, was that even a thing back then? Like, all natural, from our own American soil. You shaking your head, you're not gonna say.
Well, and they make. Yeah,
I think that was just trying. I think that was just trying to be quirky. I think that was really even if it was silly. I think that was just them just being.
Well, they tried to
really
make them
quirky.
like zombies, like.
Yeah.
Oh, well, let's cut their vocal cords so they garble, and then when they come after the girl, the sister in the end, they're acting like zombies, but they're just normal humans who got their vocal cord cut and were being fed through a funnel.
I wish they went a step further with the zaniness and go like a House 2 route. And while you see those people in the ground, you see a gigantic mutant fucking rabbit yank them down like in cartoons, and the rabbit's eating them like they're carrots. I don't know. That's really all I had. The nostalgia factor is the biggest thing here, and that's why when I watched it again, I tried to pay a little bit more attention. You know, we're all products of our phones, so when we watch movies, we're multitasking, we're looking at our phones. So I tried to be present and watch it again because the last time I watched it, I didn't like it. This time I'm on the fence. Um, let's get to our ratings, and then I also have a giveaway this week. And you're gonna have two ways to win. If you made it this far, Godspeed, good luck, thank you. But let's go. Let's do our rankings. I gave it a 2.5. I was on the fence with 2, but that's right down the middle. 2.5. It's not a movie I'm dying to show anybody. It's not a movie I watch annually, but it's a movie I know, and it's a movie I respect, and it's a movie I'm always going to remember because that cover alone for this one, the pig head and the chainsaw, like it's iconic in the horror world, period. But as an overall flick, 2.5. John?
Yeah, I do see you guys' points, and I totally understand it. Like I don't fault anyone's thoughts on it. Like I get it. It's fucking silly. This movie is fucking silly, and I don't know how I would feel like if I just saw it fresh now. I don't. I mean, I can see in hindsight now what they were trying to do because I think like Farmer Vincent and the hotel, they were trying to do like Psycho, and they were trying to make him like a simple Jimmy Dean type of guy, but he's also got that layer to him where he's crazy, and you don't really see that till the end when he puts the mask on and he's like ha 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 ha, and he's like screaming. That's like the first time in the movie where you actually see him crazy, right? And like you were talking about the TCM2 thing. That honestly could have happened because I know Toby wanted to do different, and he might have seen this movie and been like, "Oh shit, we should do this." That's I never thought about that, and that definitely could have been what happened.
Good job, Kellen.
Yeah, I mean, I never even considered that. The tone of the movie, yeah, it's mixed. I think the comedy and the quirkiness. There's a lot of things in these '70s and '80s movies that's very odd. It's very quirky. Like sometimes the humor and stuff like with the girl with the bullwhip and shit. It's very of its time. And I think like just like if you just saw that out of context, you'd be like, what the fuck is this, right? It's just hard to objectively review these. I do think for what they were going for, it's really good. So it's a 3.5 out of 5 for me. 3.5. So
Fair. Keelan?
Oh, I got a movie idea. It's a farmer that makes fritters out of people, but it's a horror comedy. That's how
Did
this
he make
movie
fritters? Were there fritters in the movie?
there was not. I don't think so.
That was just the tagline, and they
Yeah.
made sure to point that out, and it's on the cover of the poster. It takes all kinds of critters to make Farmer Vincent's fritters or whatever it said. God, this movie is Trolls 2 if they had actual actors. It's so.
What does that mean?
I wouldn't go that far.
So
I would not
Trolls
go
2.
that far, yeah.
So Trolls 2 is one of those movies that's so bad it's good. This movie is the acting is good, but the movie's so bad, and it's not bad enough to be good. I don't know how else to explain it. Trolls 2 is like one of those movies you watch and you're like, this is awful. I love it. This movie is like, this is awful. I can't believe they got decent actors to be in this.
George Hardy, if you're listening, I'm sorry, buddy. I'm sorry.
Damn.
you said that.
He knows it. He knows it.
Oh, yeah.
He does.
You don't go back to your hometown to become a dentist if you think your acting career is going to take off. Granted, I still need to watch the other movies we talked about because y'all did say that he was good in the
Texas
other
Cotton.
movies.
Texas Cotton was
and then-
one I remember for
The
sure. And
Sis,
Sis.
he was great.
Sis
Sis,
was-
yeah.
Sis
So
was just
I
a
do
fun
need
movie.
to watch those. And he's a great guy. If everybody should just give him a shout out. He's super nice. But this movie's not. I have no desire to ever watch it again. I feel like if you were really good at editing, you could edit this to be 5 different movies just by cutting clips out, and it could be 5 different shorts, and all of them would have a different feel and tone.
It could be a TV
so-
show on PBS on Sunday evenings too about plants and gardening.
Yeah. I mean, if somebody wanted to go out of their way, I mean, now this would be a hell of a adaptation for like a Plants versus Zombies movie. That's how the zombies come about, and some of them mutate into the plants, and I don't know. But I'm with Jay. I teeter on a 2, but the acting's good, and I really like Rory Calhoun. He's a treat. So 2.5.
I've already forgot. I said 2.5. You said 2.5, Kellen.
He said 3.5, so 3. Call it 3.
That's fair.
Call it 3. Yeah, we'll do
That's
that.
fair.
Yeah. Again, it's just that nostalgia thing, and
be aware, I gave this movie a higher rating than Abigail.
Oh, we fucking are aware.
I just
I'm always
Can't
aware.
believe
So is
that.
karma and the universe, sir. Again, it's different for Kellen because you and I have been into horror forever. So this is it. I genuinely do think that it's a horror royalty to a degree. Even when you watch the documentaries about the 80s, In Search of Darkness, they talk about this one in length. So, but a 3's fair. Great acting. Blah, blah. Okay, so if you're listening, you made it. Great. I have a copy of Motel Hell on DVD that I want to give you this week. You have 2 ways to get this. One, if you're listening, message us and just give us our code name, our code word, which is fritters. Fritters. Also, I was going to say that at the end when we sign off, and Kellen took my thunder. I was going to say that fritters quote, but so message us if you got this far and just say fritters. That gives you 1 entry. I'm also going to do a post on Facebook this week too, so keep an eye out for that. Same thing we usually do. I want you to do something for us. In exchange, you get an entry. It's easy. It's free. So just fucking do it. Giving stuff away is so hard on the internet sometimes. And it also depends on what it is. Like if I said, hey, $1,000 coming your way, all you got to do is comment, I would get blown up. It's kind of like when I was booking shows and I would say, okay, I would post them like, hey guys, I need a band or 2 for Springwater. Crickets. Hey guys, I need a band or 2 for Exit In. Boom, blew up. You're getting something for free.
It kind of shows our society how dumb we are. Like you're trying to legitimately give something away, and people are like, "What's the catch? I don't believe you." But somebody from India calls and like, yes, I need you to get me Google gift cards, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I'll be right back."
Canceled. We just got canceled. But yeah, I get it, and I like giving stuff away. It's fun, and it's something that we enjoy, and we want you to enjoy it with us. So just try it. I'm going to mail it to you. It doesn't cost you a damn dime. Anyways. Signing off, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, to wherever you're listening to this podcast. Be sure to enter this fucking contest this week. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok. Join our group on Facebook. There's one more, right? Oh, Amazon Music. If you have an Amazon Music subscription, we have a playlist on there. Just search the Horror Sanctum podcast. I update it every week as much as I can. With songs, scores, whatever, from guests and movies that we've done. It's a lot of fun. Oddity was a tough one. There's no Oddity music. Maybe this will drop at some point. But anyways, signing off. I'm Jay with John and Kellen. And until next time, keep it spooky. Fuck y'all.
What a dick. What a dick. Okay. I forgot to read this because I literally could not remember what happened. It just dawned on my head. They talk about eating a dog. I hope they all die. That was a quote that I wrote myself.
Oh yeah,
when watching this movie.
Yeah,
when they talked about him killing and smoking the dog, and the grandma was so happy that I was like, "Oh, I hope you die. I hope you die."
Give me human meat over dog meat any day. I probably had dog meat in my life.
And then when he gut punches Ada.
Oh yeah,
like literally hauls off and punches her, and the sheriff is just like, "Oh, they just like to tease each other." What is this town?
It's so. I'm telling you, this movie. I can't judge anyone for even hating it. It's so weird. It's just something about it. I think as a kid, just not seeing a ton of horror, it just like latched into my subconscious, and it's that like Joe Bob talking about it. When I met Joe Bob, I talked about this movie. It was all, I literally went to him, I said, Motel Hell, and he started laughing. And it was like, I don't know, just one of those weird things you latch in.
And we all have those. Kellen's a puppet master. Mine's every movie I own. Like we all have that,
Yeah, most of those I would say probably all of the Puppet Master movies, if you really look at them, are garbage, are hot garbage.
And they're just
bad acting.
The other ones.
Right. The music is, their music is terrible. I love them. I love them so much.
They're amazing. Charlie Band and Robin.
I love them. I would watch them every year in order.
It's on my list to rewatch soon.
Just happy.
I've only seen the first one, I think. The first puppet. I don't think I've seen the sequels. I don't think
the first one is
first one's the best. The last two are top
Are they pretty good?
The Littlest
Right,
Reich
yeah.
with Thomas Lennon.
And Barbara.
Yeah, that was so good. It was so
And there's
bad.
the
but
Iron
it
Cross was
was
the other
so
one.
good. I haven't seen the Iron Cross yet.
But they take the weird
that's
Nazi
one I
turn.
haven't seen.
Strange.
The second one's probably my favorite because of the Leech Woman.
Oh
And your
yeah.
Nightmares.
But the thing is what's funny is they're not great, but if you watch them in order, they try to build a little universe that exists in this, and they give you more and more of the story and background, and then they kind of change some things a little bit, but they give you the background of the guy that created the puppets, and that they're basically Nazi souls that he put in of soldiers that died, and he put in these puppets. One, the Leech Woman is his wife. I think Blade is supposed to be him.
Oh yeah. Okay.
But yeah, it's just I love it.
It's weird how sometimes a movie, I find this happen a lot. Like you love a movie, but like Bloodsport for me. Bloodsport is like not traditionally a great movie, but I swear to God, if someone said you're on an island, you only have 3 movies. Bloodsport is one of those movies that I'm keeping on the island.
Bloodsport is a class. Bloodsport's one of those action movies that probably doesn't deserve it, but I would give a 5. And
Yeah.
I've seen it so many times, and it's just because it's just such a fun movie. Death Warrant. Death Warrant is not a great film.
I
but
can almost reach your copy of Death
love
Warrant
it.
right now that I have for you.
I love that. I've watched that. I've seen that probably 10 times.
It's
I just,
awesome.
come on, and he gets hit with the wrench.
yeah. The Sandman.
The whole premise of the movie is dumb. That they're gonna put a police officer who has arrested half the inmates in a prison to try to uncover what's going on with the organ harvesting and inmates dying. Like, are you kidding me? You're gonna put the one guy they're all instantly gonna recognize, the muscles from Brussels,
It makes
the
sense. It
only
just makes
cop who
sense.
has an accent and doesn't wear a disguise, and you're gonna put him amongst a bunch of killers?
I know.
What sense does that make?
God.